Hi, Michael.
Hey there, how you guys doing?
Great, good. You're here. Is Michael the only one on? Yeah, and I'm sharing today.
You're in charge.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the July Sustainability Committee for Cross Plains. We're going to do a quick roll call and then we're going to get started. And I'm going to go by memory because I actually don't have the list of. Do we have? Okay, we'll go by memory. Jenny Dieterich, present. Thanks. Jed Henry.
Here.
Kat Larson and Melissa Gavin is here. I don't think we call for staff, do we?
No.
No, not typically. Terrific. So that is all of us. I'm going to officially call us order at 6:01. Do we have any public comment? Is this one we want to?
Brian, too, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Brian Mullen, Seaton Valley, 1771 Cornerstone Drive. Cross Plains moved here 2 years ago. I'm an architect by training. I went to the University of Manchester, practiced architecture for about 7 years, and then went back to grad school in Tucson in landscape architecture from the University of Arizona. And then since then, I've been practicing landscape planning, large-scale landscape planning. And I initially worked at the University of Illinois for 18 years, then I was at Penn State for 15 years, and then I got recruited to the University of Georgia. I was at 5 years, and then we moved here. But my entire career has been for sustainability, so I was perusing the agenda. I signed up to several of the agendas of the village, and saw that the sustainability committee was had a vacant seat. And that was just today. So I thought, inquired, it seems like things may be moving quickly. But yeah, so a lot of my work, was 20 or so years was involved mostly forestry scale stuff, as Forest Service, with the National Park Service, with Bureau of Land Management, with Bureau of Reclamation during that time period. Then when I was at Penn State, I was there during the beginning of the fracking revolution. So I worked a lot on issues of how to accommodate what was inevitably going to happen, sort of the way laws of private property work, but how to make that as sensitive as possible, and also how to mitigate impacts that did occur. And then so from that point I moved to the University of Georgia, where I did a lot more work on climate related issues. So coastal change, um, all the sorts of issues related to that. So I dealt with things on both the sort of policy side and the science side. And I'm quite good at doing research and quite good at writing proposals and things like that. So if there's anything in my background that would be useful to this committee, I my dad served for 35 years on the city council back in England, so I feel obliged to get back to the
Right,
wonderful.
thanks, Brian. Now, typically for public comment, and this is kind of an unusual situation, but we don't have much back and forth with public. I don't know if we actually want to kind of keep to those rules.
Yeah, let's keep those rules, and if you can stick around, or we can meet with them outside of the meeting.
But please do. We'd love to connect with you. And otherwise, you can just witness our meeting and happy to talk through questions later. On our agenda for tonight, we'll do some committee member report outs. Some of us have had some homework assignments to work on over the last month. We will approve the meeting minutes. We'll talk a little bit about the progress or obstacles that we're hitting on passing a full energy goal for Cross Plains. We'll talk about education and community outreach, the work that Jenny's doing, the work that I'm trying to do, and then we will wrap up, and plan is to have this wrapped up by 7 o'clock tonight. And then we're going to do a call for future agenda items and talk a little bit about future meetings. So making sure that we've got quorum for the next two meetings. And again, having a plan to wrap us up by about 7 o'clock. All right, so let's roll. Committee member reports. Now, some of these actually might connect to future other agenda items. And so if there's already something named on the agenda for your report out, feel free to just hold that report until then. Does anybody have anything committee, any report outs to provide that are not agenda? Yeah. All right. Then
Okay, so this was actually brought to me by Michael, who's attending the meeting as well. But we've kind of been having a lot of back and forth about the previous water quality corridor that the village of Cross Plains used to have an ordinance. And at some point, we haven't quite exactly determined when that was rescinded. So he had provided me another document now that gives a little bit more background on why that was created and when, so that we can have a little bit more information. This is something that when we previously developed our recommendations that we're going to be sending to the Plan Commission for the 10-year plan, that we did include a recommendation to reinstate the water quality corridor. So I wanted to make sure that everybody knew what that was and what the background is. It also really does relate to several of our sustainability committee plan priorities related to water. 3 in particular are about developing sets of standards and ordinances to ensure that stormwater is managed to the greatest extent possible, working with, I think you say it is Part C, to reduce the threat of flooding, and then enacting ways for residents to reduce harmful pollutants from entering waterways. So what that document was that Michael had provided was a summary of what had occurred. So in 2005, there actually was a referendum that the Cross Plains residents voted to pass, and it called for protection of our ground and surface water resources in the Black Earth Creek watershed, and thus protecting our drinking water and as well as the creek. And then based on that referendum, the village created a task force that evaluated ways to mitigate the impact of development, both new and existing, on our water quality in the Cross Plains area. The task force then made several recommendations, which included creation of a stormwater utility, which we didn't previously have, as well as a water quality corridor. And that's what this all surrounds, that designated these buffer zones around the Black Earth Creek, Garfoot Creek, and Brewery Creek, where future development wouldn't be allowed, thus protecting those areas from runoff and flooding. And then in 2006, the village board adopted a resolution from that task force and officially established a water quality corridor under Chapter 83, Section 19. And then at some point, we're not exactly sure when that section was removed. So just a little bit more further investigation to figure out when and why that was removed, so that we can have more information as we might potentially go forwards and maybe add it to a future agenda if there's something that we would want to propose to the Plan Commission, like getting some specific verbiage down, something that they could bring it back, or maybe even doing another referendum down the road. So in the meantime, just wanted to get that background information out, and I can provide that information too for the meeting minutes, or just bring it on to future agenda.
what questions do folks have for Jen?
Was that the only protection essentially as far as the village goes for?
There were several recommendations that came out of it. I was just focusing on the water quality corridor, but yeah, like the whole stormwater utility, we didn't have that before, so that was established. And then there were several other recommendations in there related to water quality and just making sure that runoff and erosion, all that sort of stuff was.
Okay, and that's all then this instance?
I don't know. We do still have a stormwater utility. The only section that was rescinded, as far as I know, is that section 19. Yeah. And it had, in that specific ordinance, it did have in it, like, I'd have to look it up exactly, but I think it said, so like Brewery Creek, I live near Brewery Creek. There was like 150-foot setback that was the buffer zone. So I do know, like, since it's been rescinded, Creek Crossing did get approved, and there's several properties that are most likely within that 150 foot zone. So my concern with that is in 2018, we had that giant flood, and it was rescinded before that. So, you know, the closer people are to the creek, the more debris that gets swept along. And that was a big part of the problem in the flood, is that there was damming that happened because there were sheds and playground equipment and RVs, things like blocking the way. Yes, there was literally an RV floating down. Yes. So you have all that extra debris, as well as just developing that land around there prevents, or it leads to more runoff in general, because you don't have that same surface that can absorb the water.
Thanks. What other questions do folks have? Nothing? Michael?
No comment.
He's not on the committee. Or-
No, I don't have anything to add.
That's great, but Jed also reminded me that you're not technically on the committee anymore.
Right.
That's great. Okay, thanks.
We had a special exception last meeting because it was sort of a transitionary thing there.
Okay, all right. Jenny, so was it formally rescinded, or did it just?
It was formally rescinded, I believe. And Michael had just sent me some more information about that. I didn't get a chance to read through everything, but we don't know exactly when.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's been fully removed from section 83. If you take a look at it, it's no longer there. It's actually, ironically enough, right below the hillside ordinance.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes.
So is that something you need someone to look at or check on?
Well,
before our next meeting?
yeah, and I know Michael was digging a little bit more. I was also thinking of reaching out to Jay just to see if he had any background information on that, but if you have
Yeah,
a more,
I'll be the first one to start
Right.
with there, because she can go back and look at the history of
Mhm.
changes to ordinances and things.
okay,
I'll look into it.
okay, awesome, that'd be great.
Thanks, that'd be great. And then we can get that report on, if we can get an update next month, that would be really helpful.
For sure.
Thank you. That was very, very helpful. Any other committee member report outs? Or anything that's not currently on the list? Okay. In that case, let's move to the second item on our agenda, which is discussion and possible approval of the meeting minutes from June. And would like to ask if there's a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second? Okay, second by Pat. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes as described? What's the
Presented.
word? Presented. Say aye.
Aye.
Any abstain? Any nays? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is talking about the renewable energy goal, the resolution. So I'll give a couple, so Jed and I will partner on this update. I drafted a draft resolution based on what we talked about last month, which was 80% renewable energy by 2035. And put that in, put that in kind of resolution type of language. And Jed, tell us what happened next.
I mean, I brought it up, I think before I got it, we had a village board meeting, I brought it up that something that the committee wanted, and basically what I was told that for the village board to consider it, they're gonna want to vote on it. Which is basically gonna look at, where are we at, what are we spending? Obviously you're gonna have a complication with figuring out where we're at with the new building, but I think, for the time being, if we can identify what we currently have and start looking at where those buildings are as far as utilities, costs, I think those numbers, a lot of those should be pretty easy to obtain. I mean, either through Matt or Bobby.
For renewable energy.
kind of figuring out, you know, what costs we would have to come up with and how we would offset that, but they're gonna want that.
Yeah.
from us.
We've run into challenges before because we're getting our electricity from energy. So part of that is just the mix that they use. They can't pinpoint for us exactly. So that's one challenge that we've run into. I'm just naming that because I think if we try to give a baseline of where we are now, we're gonna run into that right away. We're just gonna have to figure out what to do about that. But we have tried to figure out a baseline historically and found it very challenging. Open to suggestions about how we get those numbers. You'd think they'd be pretty obvious, but again, because of where we get our electricity mix, like we know we get it from MG&E, there's a mixture that's coming from there. We don't have solar panels right now, do we have any solar panels? There's a little bit on the library, is that right?
I don't think there's any in the
We have
library.
none.
During the discussion of putting one of the panels, I think that was left over.
And I think that the panels building aren't left over. I think they just got removed off the cost structure.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's got like a credit back.
yes, correct, because I don't think that they were purchased, because obviously they're not point yet, so it's just a credit back. Instead of an expenditure type thing, so.
Yeah, so there's gonna need to be some work done to try to get to a number. But I'm curious about, even if we give a number of our baseline, what was the sense about even the interest in setting a goal? Was there a discussion
I
about
didn't
that?
really get, I mean, essentially bringing it up was, you're gonna have to give us a report before we consider it. Essentially what I got.
Mhm.
Which, I mean, I get, if you're gonna consider something and you're gonna make it an agenda item, you need to have some knowledge to base it off of, so. I think it would be nice to have a sense of whether or not there's any, I guess the only way around that is to read the room, and I can go to board members and say, is this something like you think you would support? Or are we just wasting our time?
Mhm.
If that's something that you guys want, I'm happy to essentially kind of poll the village board members and see if we're close. If people would consider it.
Yeah, I will say that on a practical level, I'm wary about doing extraneous effort to pull together a report that's gonna get sidelined, because at the end of the day, there's just not that much interest in passing the goal. So,
I do still think having that baseline information might just be helpful for us in general, though, to meet our committee's goals. We can still keep working towards this, whether, they have to buy in on setting an actual goal. But
Well, and the other part of it is now that you've got a village hall full of solar panels.
yeah, we're already,
Close to.
we're already close. Yeah, so it makes it's not unattainable, it's attainable.
okay, so what I'm hearing is some interest in working in a report together.
And I would say that if we were gonna do it, probably the easiest way is to identify, I think last time we had 4 or 5 buildings.
Mhm.
Look back at my list of what it is, so, maybe each one of us takes a building,
Mhm.
says, hey, get the numbers on this, figure out what the expenditures are. Because you're looking at mostly just energy consumption, right?
Yeah, right, so we focus on electricity rather than energy as a whole, so heating, for example. I think our language was electricity. So do you remember?
I don't know if it actually
said,
did it say that? I don't know.
I think we said electricity for 2035. And so what we could do, I think the way that we could hammer this out is identify the buildings, and that would be a Carly question, or would that be who? Or
Most likely.
Yeah, okay. So what are the buildings? I think it's a great idea to divide it up amongst committee members. I think the question is going to be, what the mix is coming from MG&E, but that will be standard across all of those buildings.
I assume most buildings would be like houses and everybody has a heater.
Yeah, are they curious about, right now, the answer is the baseline is zero, there's zero renewable energy, and our goal is 80% energy. So is there a question how much it's gonna cost, or is there a question of why?
Well, I think it's how do you get there?
Is that the
I mean,
question?
that would be
The process, what steps need to be taken to achieve it.
There's no doubt the financial part of it will be a consideration. You know, I mean, I think that, you know, even if you look at it from your house, like if I was gonna put solar on my house, I wanna know how much it's gonna cost up front and how long it's gonna take me to recoup that and how long that's gonna last.
And the companies do that for you. In fact, the ones that Michael had sent us in those emails, they kind of put that as an estimate and all that sort of thing in the recoup time.
So before they set a goal, they wanna know the pathway to get to that goal, they want the whole.
Well, I think if you're gonna set a goal and you're gonna commit to it as a village, you wanna make sure that it's attainable and that it's also not gonna bust your budget. And
Sure,
so.
but then none of these communities would ever set a goal. That's a lot of it's the technology that keeps
Yeah.
moving.
So, and just a little bit of history, when we were working on just an energy efficiency goal, to say the village prioritizes energy efficiency, even that we couldn't pass without, even that we couldn't pass. So what we were able to do was prioritize spending some staff time to do an energy audit. And that's what gave us like $1,000 grant for focus on energy. But there has been opposition to setting a goal. And so I'm just wary, I want to make sure that if we prepare a report, that we're doing it in a way that is going to be useful to us, but isn't going to take our time when in fact we're not even going to be able to, politically, we can't move a goal. So balancing, making sure that the report is useful for the committee. Because I actually don't think it's gonna convince the village board.
Probably not, but I also think that they're beholden to their voters, and that survey that went through, overwhelmingly, people had supported this as a goal.
Can I ask a question? There seems to be a huge setback with the board, am I gathering this right? Like, in the goals of this committee, like, I'm missing pieces that I'm trying to,
I'm missing those
Understand.
pieces too.
yeah.
I wouldn't say setback. I think that, I think the board is very focused on finances. And also very, like, shorter term payoff.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's been the challenge.
I think the other challenge goes back to the makeup of this committee and why we're doing co-chairs is, you know, the background, and this was something that I had to get, it was one of the reasons why I canceled the first meeting, because I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know, like, no one was giving me a direction where we were supposed to go and what we were supposed to do. And then the information that I got was it started as an ad hoc committee, became sort of an informal committee, and then became a full committee. But there's no direction from the board or from staff. And so it's upon the committee to do things. And so I think with most of the committees, there's direction that trickles down that says we want this. Whereas we are trying to work our way upstream and saying, we think you should do this. And so I agree. I don't think that we should waste time if it's not going to happen. And so maybe the reports go in steps, you know, where we put together the information, and maybe it's something simple of just, here's what we're spending on this building and this building. Here's what it would cost to offset that in solar or other ways. Is that enough? You know, I can present it and they can say no, or they can kick it back, or we can send it to them for review and say, this or this. You know, however you guys want to do it, but
Yeah.
I don't have the history like she does. I mean, obviously, the committee has tried some things in the past and has kind of struggled to gain some footing, if you will. And I think that it's a bit harder now because a lot of the incentives have disappeared. And so now it's like, if you don't have a lot of those financial grants and incentives to do the renewable stuff, is it financially viable?
That's why setting a 10-year goal makes sense, and things, you know, things are the wind blows and, you know, something changes and.
Right, so there's a chicken and egg thing going on here, which is, do we set a goal and figure out how to get there? And that's what the recommendation from the committee has been to the board. Let's set a goal, figure out how to get there. And the board has said, no, it's the other way around. Tell us how to get there and then we'll agree to set the goal. And so we continue to spin our wheels here. Again, I'm not opposed to preparing a report. I think that preparing a report is we would want to make sure that it's benefiting our committee and we're doing some learning along the way, because I'm very cynical that it's going to convince the board to pass a goal.
But I think from a baseline, we should know what we're spending and what it takes to offset. I mean, because we might find something that says it should be really easy to offset with renewables. We could find something that says it should be very difficult. And I think any of that information would be valuable. So, and I think that if we can break it up and we can give each person a building, and I think in a month or two, that's an easily attainable piece of information. I mean, I would think that Bobby can look and say, here's what the MGD bill is for this building for the last year.
For sure. And Michael's actually done a lot of this analysis. So there's a lot of institutional memory here that we can draw from, because he's done this analysis and actually has kept it up to date up until probably very recently. The analysis of energy use across all the buildings. So this is why I'm trying to understand what their question is, because that analysis exists. It's been ongoing for the last couple of years. We've had an audit. We've had Focus on Energy come out and say, these are the priority items that you need to do to reduce energy. Here's what it would cost to do that. The village has not agreed to make many of those investments. So that kind of reporting and analysis already exists in terms of our energy use.
And so, I mean, I guess what I can say to you is, I can see not doing a gigantic report, but if you want to start working in phases and every month give it back to them and say, are you happy with this? Have you put it on the agenda? No. If not, what else do you want? And we can just keep moving. And if at some point it says, hey, look, we're not learning and we've done what we think is, we've given you the best information, you should be able to make a decision here because we have. And if you can't get anywhere, then.
Yeah. I think that's a viable option. So I think doing some initial research and bringing the whole committee along. Michael's done some outstanding research and analysis, and I think it'd be helpful for all of us to get involved in those numbers and understand those numbers. And so I like the idea of splitting it up. That would be my proposal, is that first we ask Carly to give us a breakdown of the buildings that the village owns. And then we look into what kind of data is available, but we split it up amongst the committee to do that analysis back in a subsequent meeting and put that together. But again, what I'm hearing from you, Jed, is that the committee is interested in the pathway, or the village board is interested in the pathway to achieve that goal. They want to both see, they want to know how doable it is before they commit to a goal.
The only response I got was from Jay.
Okay.
And Jay wanted a report.
Okay. Would you be willing to talk to other board members to understand what their interest level is, so that we know what information they also need from us? Okay, so that'll be your homework in addition to some building analysis.
And then again, I do think it's helpful to reiterate that the public in that survey overwhelmingly wanted this goal.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to repeat what I've heard. For the time being, we're gonna slow down on that resolution, the draft resolution for the board, until there's a little bit more data and reporting. To do that data and reporting, Matt, can we rely on you to ask Carly, or who can ask Carly?
I can.
A breakdown of those.
I can get our building.
Okay, so you can get that list of buildings, and then Jed and I will just kind of randomly assign people to a building. I think there's probably 4 or 5 buildings, so we'll just.
Well, there's actually probably quite a bit more than that, and not to cause more work for myself, but there is a lot of new buildings coming, new infrastructure coming, that I think if there is a direction you guys would like to see with that building, maybe instead of focusing on what we have and what we can improve, is starting out the new buildings with going the correct direction.
How do folks feel about that?
Can you tell me what buildings?
Well, there's potentially a pool, there's potentially a booster station, potentially another booster station, potentially a well, a reservoir. Down the road, public facilities might need to be redone. What things should we be looking at when new structures are being built, and what should be considered smart ways to spend the money? I don't know.
I think that's really important, and I think that we can get more buy-in from the board on that.
Kind of setting the standard moving forward, as opposed to trying to change what's already done in the past.
I think that's easier.
Unless there's some low-hanging fruit.
Correct, yeah, like changing lights in the public facility would be huge.
Right.
Stuff like that, or at the sewer plant.
I mean, the one thing to consider though is, other than the reservoir is probably 3 to 4 years before they build that pumping station.
Something like that, yeah.
So
That's within that 9 to 10 years.
yes. But like in the immediate future, it's what can we do in these next couple of years? And I think that starts with the existing and at least knowing where it's at.
We can keep.
Yep.
And then saying, hey, look, in the coming years, you're gonna have this, and this. So if we can't fill the whole library roof with solar panels.
Mhm.
That's okay, but we can still get to our 80% knowing that we're gonna have these things come online as long as we're committed to doing it. But again, I think we need to figure out what we have existing, inventory that, and then also look at the future things that are coming. Because all those things, do we have new welcomes?
It's
Because we just
no.
did that. That was part of what was at the ballpark, right?
A new well 3 got put in two years ago, and then they redid the well at Bear Park.
Okay.
But
Is that something, so could you put together a list for us of current buildings and what is reasonable in the next 5 years? What you see coming down the,
Or can we just talk this through? 'Cause I think we figured it out last time. It's public facilities, the library, the fire station, we kind of were, fire station. Oh,
no, I don't think they
because it's
fall
a
under.
district.
you got
The
both
sewer.
the sewer, got 3 wells. You got both shelters at Bear Park. And you got the 2 stadium lights at the parks. I think that's
Is there
it.
any water treatment? Did you say that?
Sewer/water treatment plant.
It'd be the sewer plant, yeah.
Okay.
And
Same
then,
thing, right?
yeah, well, no, sewer plant is for sewer, then you got 3 wells for the water. Then you got 2 reservoirs. They don't obviously use much energy. I think that's it. No other parks have power to them.
Okay.
So there, that's 5. You have public facility, library, sewer, wells, and shelters at Bear Park.
Yeah, and then the village hall is kind of an in-between right now, because I don't know that it makes sense for us to.
We can't just build it stuff. It's already there. They've already committed. The solar is done. There's as much as they can get on. And
Okay.
some, so I don't think that we need to look at that.
Okay.
We will at some point, it might be the end of the year before this is all sort of complete. And we're supposed to move the new building in November, right?
Yeah, I think completion sometime November.
So, that gives us, 4 to 5 months to work on this. By the end of the year, you'll have a complete sort of picture knowing where that's at. And at least some readout on costs for that being offset.
All right, well, so we feel like does that list sound right to you? Do you want to do any other thinking, or do you feel like what Jen
That's-
captured was right on?
We got 2 lift stations too that draw power, but I don't think you're gonna do much there,
Okay,
so.
All right, so who wants to take what? Does anybody have a particular interest? We've got public facility, library. You want to do library since you've already been
Sure.
sort of on
Yeah,
that?
can talk
Do you
to
have an interest in anything? Do you want to work with Matt on public facility? If you guys can kind of, since you're new, it'll be good to partner you with him and he can help you kind of with everything.
Now, have you seen the focus on energy audit that they did?
I have not.
Okay, because that was, substantially the public facility building and had some recommendations.
I believe that.
Is that
With some
something you can share with the
projections.
group? Because I have obviously not seen it either.
Michael, I think you might be the person to talk about, so I'm gonna reach out to you, but we will find that, I will find that.
Melissa, do you want sewer or wells?
I'll do sewer, I kind of feel like the wells, I don't know.
I think the wells are, no, I don't think there's much to do
Yeah,
there.
okay. Okay, yeah,
When was that on?
I wanna say like 3 years ago.
Oh.
Yeah, so the library electricity use is gonna be kind of in flux because they did just change all those LED lights. So I only have a few months data on that. But so what exactly are we looking for? So like a year of data of like what the energy use is and what came from renewables? Is that what we're looking for?
I think it's energy usage, and then the next step is going to be what can we do to offset it?
Okay.
So first thing is get the data on the usage. Let's get a baseline data on usage. And then, if we, like with those library studies, if we take those, maybe there's some information there to look at what they had and say, hey, can we offset what's being used with the amount of solar panels that you could put on that? If the answer is yes, then the question then becomes how much will cost?
So, the MGE bill is gonna be helpful for us, how would we get a hold of that?
Carly, Bobby,
That'd be a
Bobby
Bobby.
most likely would have it, but I would message both of them.
Okay, Matt, as staff, would you be willing to ask Bobby to share out maybe the last, I don't know how far back we wanna go.
I would ask for like, if it,
You just wanna,
for 2025. That data should be all somewhere.
probably,
It's a full year then. I would say
so
that's
you
probably-
just want a, energy report essentially?
Yeah, I guess the energy bill.
And we're
Energy bill.
strictly looking at electricity.
I think so. I don't think, because that's what our resolution said. I don't think we're in a place to move, yeah. Yeah, I think like air source heat pumps, ground source, I don't think we're ready for that conversation.
So we got PF, library, sewer. And what? And parks?
Library, sewer, and then the only one is, do we do shelters?
I mean, is that easy stuff if we know that you can just throw one panel on there and
Right.
so maybe it is worth knowing all of that, because that's, again, that low hanging fruit that we could maybe tackle.
I think the biggest one for the parks is the ball diamond lights
Yeah.
and the age of them
Yeah.
versus how quick we would recoup our cost if they were
Or why did
LED.
a new one, right?
We probably need to get 5 new ones, but yeah. So,
This one, this one's the
yeah,
bottom.
yes.
This is another one that we looked into last year. I think Michael reported on this, was the lights at Fair Park and just the amount of energy they use. It's a ton, like it's a ton. So, I will be reaching out to Michael. Again, he has done some of this analysis. This is not new analysis that we're gonna have to, this is stuff that we've looked at as a committee, but it'd be good for everybody to just get acquainted with the numbers and understand what our village, energy use is, but Michael's done this analysis and.
So at Bear Park, it's more about replacing the existing lights than it is about putting panels through it.
I think so. I mean, I wouldn't,
I just don't think that you're gonna have enough solar panels to offset a whole lot of usage there, even if you change those lights. And then
Not-
how do you store that
Not necessarily there, but we have talked about, so, at some point, I think what we need is like one megawatt of solar would cover the village from the analysis that we did a couple of years ago. And we talked with, Jay about, working with a solar developer, and we even looked at sites for where we could put that much solar. And we looked at public property here in town, we looked at private property here in town. We weren't able to find a site that would be suitable for that much solar, but it doesn't have to be all at the same location, to the point. So if we can find a place to build more solar in Cross Plains, whether that's on public or private property, that helps us get to our goal as well. All right, so we've got some assignments. I'm gonna repeat what I've heard. Jed, you're gonna do some talking to board members to find out what is it that they actually want to know from us, and how open are they to considering a goal? Whatever the report says, because it could be the most amazing report. And Kat, you are gonna do public works along with Matt. Jenny, you're gonna do library analysis. I'll do the the water treatment, sewer treatment plant. And Matt, you're gonna reach out to Bobby to get the MG&E bills for 2025. We could either do all of 2025 and do just calendar year, or we could do the last 12 months. I think I'm personally agnostic. I don't know if there's
I think 2025 is best because she already has it. Like if it's for the last 12 months, you might not have the latest month or whatever. So then it's a full year, you get every season. It should be data that we already have. I think that's the easiest way to do it.
Anybody feel differently? Anything, any other reason?
The only thing would be the library again with that change to LED lights. It's gonna
Right.
be a bit different, so.
So you probably want the 3 recent bills or whatever recent.
Yeah, I can do a year.
Well,
most recent
I think
one,
Elizabeth
and
actually has
also
that
just
stuff.
do since the LED lights.
Okay.
And she's given me a comparison for the first month compared to last year as well, so she can pull multiple things.
Okay. All right, anything else on this? So the plan is to try to prepare a report and continue to be in dialogue with village board about how to move it forward. Cool?
Yeah, let's bring this back every month, and then when we get to a point when we think we've got enough, then I'll try and put forward.
All right. The next item on the agenda is discussion on education and community outreach initiatives and a demonstration project. There are 2 things here that I thought we could talk about. One is, Jenny, your work to get an article in the village newsletter.
I did submit another one,
Cool.
so whenever that comes out, you will see that. It was on the adopt a storm sewer, so that's in there, and then just put a summary of our meeting from last time, just like 3 major points of the things that we were working on.
Awesome. Okay. Any questions on that? And that's there's a quarterly newsletter that comes out from the village. So we have an opportunity to get.
I think it's every other month. Yeah.
Really. So
These 6.
okay. Cool. Questions on that? Okay. The other thing is I promised to start work on a solar home tour. I thought that it would be better for us to work with, rather than it just coming from the committee, to work with an organization that had a little bit more credibility and also infrastructure to support an event like that. So I reached out to an organization called Solar United Neighbors that helps people put solar on their homes and also works in communities to do things like solar supplies. I have not heard back yet from folks there, but I think rather than my recommendation is that we work with an organization or 2 rather than it just coming from the committee. And so I wanted to just kind of give you an update there. Happy to have pushback. If you're like, no, Melissa, we should just totally do this on our own, then let's talk about that. But my recommendation is that we work with an organization that can talk through all kinds of questions, and kind of they've done they have events, annual events that help communities do stuff like this. So that's my recommendation. And so I wanted to just kind of maybe slow it down a little bit, work with an organization and do it well, rather than just kind of do something that maybe doesn't have great attendance because we don't have the same, infrastructure and marketing things like that.
I think that sounds like a good idea. I was kind of trying to think just over the month, it popped in my head a few times, like, when would we do this? And
That's
I mean,
the
maybe it
question.
would be, maybe it would be better for next spring. We could, I don't know if it would be good for
Child
Charlie.
Day, no. Yeah, I was thinking about that, or Earth Day, but that's, Jenny, that's actually where I started, is like, I want there to be a natural hook, rather than, this is the date that works for you on the sustainability committee. I wanted there to be some kind of tie-in to, you know, make it meaningful. And Solar United Neighbors has something, so, like, they have like a national day of like home solar education. They do events around that. And so I thought that, and I wanted to say that it's like in September or October. So I wanted to work with an entity that we could make it more of a thing. And so but it also could be around some other community event that we do at the village. But it seemed to me, as the more I started to think about it, that it should have some kind of hook that made sense for the community, rather than it just being randomly chosen. So that's the update, and I'm happy to continue working on it, but I wanted to wait on setting a date until we had a community partner that made sense to work with.
I agree, I think it makes sense, and if you're gonna get media involved, you're gonna, ideally, you've got something that.
Like a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it could be at this time of the year when your air conditioner is running nonstop and people are like, oh my God, my bill's up $100 this month. Like, is there any way to offset it? I mean, it can be, you know, at times like that. You know, I mean, I don't think you want to do it in the winter because now people are thinking, oh, put solar panels and then it'll snow and then I don't get anything on it. So, yeah, I mean, a date that works. You know, I mean, could it be this year still and in the fall or something? Yeah. But I think if you can pick something that has people thinking about those ideas, it's better. And I do like the idea of, you know, having some people that can market as well and have groups that are interested in that. You know, I mean, I also think that, you know, could be a partnership with the library and maybe it's part of their educational series. You know, and we can use basically looking at how we can offset the libraries and sort of the analysis that we've done with that, partner with them. I mean, I'd even thought, you know, and again, this depends on what happens with the pool, but I mean, you've got that shelter there. You can put solar panels on that shelter.
Yeah.
But then you've got to figure out how you collect it. You know, are you got to put up a building then to store batteries? Can you collect it, or can you run underground into the library? And if you don't want to put it on the library's roof because we've had roof issues, then you put it there on the shelter and then just run the power into the library. The problem is if that pool goes away, which likely will, then what does that area become? Nobody really knows yet.
Yeah. Okay, well, I don't know, yeah, I don't know what to do with that space, but I am thinking that we might want to connect the solar home tours with, after the new village halls of the solar panels, because that can be another stop that we include. So we should just be about that as well. So if it's okay with folks, I'm going to continue working and trying to find an organizational partner. It could also be Sustain Dane. It could be, but there are a number of groups that I feel like we could be in partnership with, and I'm happy to continue taking the lead on that. I just want to make sure that
we don't find any residents that have a share.
Jenny, my neighbor Andy Hartman in the
I'm
backyard.
sure Jay would be.
Jay, right, yeah.
Steps on my street. I've got 2 other people on my street
I
that,
don't think it's hard to find,
yeah,
you know, 5 or 10 people.
as long as they're home that day, I don't.
I mean, the other thing, can you find a builder?
Like a developer? Oh, yeah.
There's lots of builders.
Totally.
In neighborhoods right now, can we find one that's building a home or putting solar on? You know, that's focused on that stuff that would be willing to show off their houses.
That's a great idea. If there's one of them that's, if there's one of them that's available. Yep. So step 1 is I want to find an organization and then come back to the committee with some proposed dates and then figure out who else to include. But I think it's really important to figure out the partnership piece first. So I'll continue to work on that. But I don't want to set a date without some other entity involved to make it as effective as possible.
Makes sense.
That is it for our items for tonight. So wrap up next steps, and we're gonna spend talking about our next meeting. Do folks know what their homework is? Does anybody have any questions about that?
I don't know.
I can give it to you after.
Cool. I know what my homework is, and I will also, I'm still working on compiling everything together for the 10-year plan. I want to try to have that to you guys at least a week before the next meeting, so you have a chance to look through, so we can formally look at it at a meeting and decide if we want to send it on.
Sure. So let's add that as a future agenda item, is reviewing that draft. Okay, thank you for doing that.
Review the draft of what, sorry?
The comprehensive plan updates. Okay, any other,
Our next meeting should be August 12th. Is it August 12th?
I know I'm gonna be out of town.
You are gonna be out of town?
Yeah, we're out of town that week, and so curious if folks have the opportunity to reschedule, or if we should. I want to say thanks so much.
There's not work. Okay.
No. Okay.
I could do my I believe.
There's other meetings that also go in on here,
Oh,
so we'd have to either
yeah,
check with that first.
schedules and everything.
Yeah.
Is there one regular?
Good.
It's the library, right?
Yeah, well, have to check their schedule too.
Third Wednesday of the month? Yeah, what?
I don't know if that's, I don't know when finance meets or parks or.
Jenny, can you remind me what the timeline is with the comprehensive plan? Do you know?
I
wanted
think
to
we
say
talked
it's
about how, yeah, that they had wanted.
We could also,
I don't know when their meeting is in September, but if we could, if we wanted to just wait till. I don't know. Does anybody know when the plan commission meets?
I'm trying.
They meet the first Monday of the month.
First Monday, which would be the 7th of September.
I forgot.
So it looks like the 19th is free here.
Oh, it is.
Okay,
Does that work for everyone?
I can make that work.
Okay, so let's tentatively plan on that. I will email Carly and now and see if that's works for them. Future agenda items.
We have named the comprehensive plan, update the recommendations. We'll talk about that and what that to our August meeting. Anything else? Actually, Jenny, what about having an agenda item on the reinstate that we should talk about for the water quality corridor?
Yeah, I mean, I might have more information by then. I can see, I'm not sure if I will, but at this point, it's included in our recommendations that we'll be looking at that
Okay,
meeting.
So maybe we don't have to separate.
Yeah, I think in the future, it would be more, are we gonna take action officially? Bring something forward that we would like to be reviewed.
Okay, so big agenda items will be reviewing the comprehensive plan recommendations and discussing the data that we're all gonna be pulling together. That's gonna be a pretty robust conversation between both of those items, so hopefully that feels, is there anything else that feels important to talk about for our next agenda?
Yeah, we can put the other things that we've had on, and if we don't get to them, we just for the next.
Okay.
I mean, if you don't have it on the agenda, we can't talk about it, so if there's things from the
Okay.
last one, leave them on, and if we don't get to them, we don't need to be here, it shouldn't be here for 2 hours, but.
Okay. All right, cool. I think with that, we're at the bottom of our agenda. So I would take a motion to adjourn.
I will put out a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Okay. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Bye.
Any
Aye.
abstained? Any nays? Okay, we're adjourned at 6:55. Thank you, everyone. Good work.
Brian, thank you for attending.
Ryan, tell us everything about yourself now. So